Howdy, folks. I've been meaning to make this video for a long time. So basically, we got the Mega Long bed here, and then we've got there's the old bed for it. Still, I can't really decide if I want to sell it. Technically, I've got it for sale, but I'm also like, it'd be kind of cool to do something with it. So, anyways, but doubt that'll ever happen. So I probably should just unload it. But basically, I wanted just to talk about the experience I had with stretching this thing and some of the issues I had from the gentleman who did it. And I hate making videos like this where I'm kind of maybe in a way not exactly supporting the guy. You might say bashing him is maybe a more direct way of saying it. But if somebody's gonna go through all the struggle to stretch one of these things, I just figured I'd like to put out a quick video about the guy who did this for me, and the pros and the cons, right? From the issues I ran into with him. Yeah, I shouldn't say him. Real personable guy. Pretty responsive via email. But from as far as the quality of the work and so on, and how I would have preferred things done, definitely were not done the way I'd like them. So with that said, I'll try and keep this video as quick as I can, but it's probably going to be a minute because I'm going to get under there and show you literally what I'm talking about in some of these cases. Now, I've got a rough list of really everything that I'm going to cover here, but one of which is this guy here in the bed. But basically, I'll just go through it. So let's just talk about in the bed, the gooseneck hitch holes, how he popped those for the safety chain loops. Not impressed with that at all. Absolute garbage. Let's see, the drive shaft, I've still got a vibration in it at 70 miles an hour under load. So that's annoying. The taillight clips, that's just kind of another story, and it's not a big deal, but it's annoying. Missing bed bolts. So I've got two Mopar ones, and that's another part of the story. Fuel tank. This guy here was supposed to go in there. He claimed it wouldn't fit. I'll get into more of that in a minute. The axle alignment with how he did that, and that goes into a bigger problem of how it was stretched, you might say. Let's see. Not that this is a big deal, but the guy originally, an email, everything, we quoted 6,700 for everything for him to do the stretch. And anyways, basically, when I went in there with the total invoice, he'd give me an invoice for 6,500. I said, no, it's, you told me 67, and he instantly just wrote it back up for 67 and didn't say a word. But it's like, okay, if you wrote it for 65, maybe just call it good, right? And then, especially with some of the other issues with this tank that I ran into. And then the parking brake cable is rubbing on how he did those. So basically, I'll go into each one of those 8 things a little bit more in depth. So first off, the bed holes in the gooseneck hitch. So the B&W hitches, and well, I guess most gooseneck hitches, some are different, but normally these little safety chain eyelets, right? You would drill 2 holes for each one through the sheet metal, and then they would just loop over the top of the sheet metal where you didn't drill it out. Instead, he drilled these god-awful, massive fucking holes in here. Excuse my language. Why on earth would you do them that way? I have no idea. So now this will tie into a potential other problem that I'm going to run into, which is related to axle alignment and the way that the bed was stretched and so on and so forth later. So if the bed, in other words, though, just to cut to the chase, if the bed ever had to move forward or backwards, I'd have to make these holes even bigger, more like ovals, right, longer. So keep that in mind as we go through this. So that, to me, is a major sore spot right there. That absolutely pisses me off. Now, I'll show you really quick for reference in the Super Duty how the B&W holes are drilled, in case, for reference, you can't grasp what I'm saying, because it's kind of hard to. But keep in mind, the guy who stretched this thing, he's got a lot of tooling and equipment to do this stuff, and you'd think he would know better. So you'll see here in mine, see right there, they're drilled 2 holes through the bed and the sheet metal for each one of these safety chains, and it's nice and clean, not some big fucking gaping hole. So that is how you're supposed to do it. Did he do it that way? Hell no. So that really has been a sore spot for me ever since I picked it up. And then let's get into the like I said, the drive shaft under load has some vibration. Now, I would probably be even more upset with that, but probably chances are I'm going to end up having to adjust the drive shaft anyway to resolve some other issues that I'm about to get into. So, once again, just annoying when you spend the money for a whole new one to get made, and that's part of your cost and that total that I mentioned earlier. Tail light clips and bed bolts. So, tail light clips, for example, the Rams, they have these little plastic clips that hold your taillight housing in, right? It comes in like that and holds it. Now, instead of pulling these off of here, because originally I wanted to keep these, so I just figured I'd get some new ones. So I just went over I told the guy when I dropped that thing off, I told him, hey, I know it's missing those little clips for the taillights. Don't worry about it. I will go get some, that and new bed bolts. And bed bolts meaning literally just the bolts that bolt the bed to the frame, the cross members. And so case in point is I went through all the trouble to go get the things at the dealership, and then I come and pick the truck up, and I asked the guy, I said, so, I got the clips. He says, oh, they'll be fine. There's, none of them in there. And so then I get home to go throw the clips in that I bought at the dealership. He had lied to me bluntly, and he actually had the clips already in there. So 1, he didn't listen to me there, and then 2, he'd already put the clips in. And then the biggest part is that he lied to me, right? He told me there weren't clips in there, and I could just, he thought the headlights or the lights would be in there for the drive home. And needless to say, there were already clips in there. So he had bought those and not told me, and then I went through all the trouble to do that. Okay, so then I also had to source some more bed bolts, which I told him I was going to send to him. Let me know when to send to him, and he never did, and that way he could have thrown them in there when I went and got it and got everything lined up, and that didn't happen either. So, okay, what was my other thing here? I got a list, right? The fuel tank. This fuel tank, these are not cheap, right? Whatever, we'll just call it $1,000. And I bought this thing so that way when you're doing all the custom fabrication in the frame, this thing can go in there. Long story short is it's obviously not in there now. And I get an email, I believe, from the guy about, I don't know. I get an email from the guy and he says, oh, I can't get the tank in there. I email him back within 24 hours and say, well, what's the deal? Let me just order a different tank, whatever, the 50-gallon model, whatever, the one's supposed to go in just a Megacab short, and I'll get it coming to you so you can get it in there. And he replies back to me 3 days later, oh, truck's done. What about the fuel tank? Oh, didn't get it in, wouldn't fit. Wouldn't fit? What do you mean? Anyway, so I kind of just believed him, right? Now, I jacked the pickup up a few weeks ago, or no, probably at this point, 6 months ago. Slid this thing under there, laid under there with it. I guarantee the forwardmost tank strap factory location, the rearmost factory tank strap location will fit. I will have to fab up a new cross member for the front tank strap, probably not that big of a deal, and that'll be kind of under the cab itself, rough location. And I think this thing will freaking fit. I laid under there. I for about 30 minutes trying to figure that out. I think this thing will fit. With all the extra real estate under there from the stretch, I don't see how it won't. So I might be eating crow here, but I think this tank will fit in there, and that is going to be one of my projects, probably starting next month, May, June timeframe, because I want to get this thing freaking done. I'm sick of it being a project. And so anyway, so that's the fuel tank thing. So then I go to pick it up, and I'm thinking, okay, I'll just return the tank. The guy had thrown away the box. So now I'm stuck with this freaking fuel tank that may or may not actually fit, that the guy threw away the box for, so I can't freaking return it. You know, right here, like I said, we'll just call it $1,000 of money right here. I should have shortchanged that guy immediately when he said I threw away the box, because this tank, I can't return it. And he fucking threw away the box. Pisses me off. So, next item. Axle alignment. And so I think I'll get under the pickup here for this really quick. So we're talking axle alignment, bed bolts, and parking brake cable rubs. So let's get under there, and I'll show you what I mean here. So let's just and I'll show you some of the work too of what was done back here. Now these things, if I ever do one of these again, I'm gonna try and do it myself. So anyways, with that said, your wiring all is pretty straightforward. All right, so there is a factory bed bolt hole. Kind of bad lighting, but right there. Factory bed bolt hole. And you know, whenever you extend these, you're kind of running the risk of not being able to get in there. So how he put, there's a bolt up in there. I don't know. Oh, there's the head. You can kind of see it right there. There you go. So we do have a bolt in there. You have to get in there with like a wobbly freaking socket to get it up in there. Pain in the butt. Same with over here. There's another one that is nice and centered. So that one's in there. We got one. Then we also have one here as well. And then the one on the other side in the same location. Right there. Bingo. All right, so we got 4 right here. Awesome. Then our cross members. Looks good. Right? Then you come back over here. There's another cross member. You know, not much to say necessarily about this. Now it's been a while since I've been under here, so there might be some things I was forgetting, but you know, nothing modified really here from factory per se, right? Let's see here. So now we're going to get into part 1 of my axle alignment issue. See the rub that it's taking out of these perches. So, you know, this thing's got low miles on it, less than, I don't know, roughly 3,000 miles, let's just say. Of this, after the stretch, it's probably got less than 1,000 miles. So, in less than 1,000 miles, those overload leaves are just eating away at that overload spring perch pad. So, not good. And I'll tell you the reason why in a minute. And for those of you who are astute, you probably already figured it out. So, that is that. Now, and it's over here too, eating away at this pad. So here's part 1 of the problem. So we're gonna scoot around. Sorry, this video is getting a little long, but anybody who's really interested in one of these would probably want to know. So there is how he did the one of the forward most bed bolts. So now notice that there is not an actual bolt. Hang on, maybe you can, maybe you can't. Right there. So right there in the camera, you'll see there's the bolt hole, and there's not an actual bolt in there yet. So that's on my to-do list. I got to loosen this plate basically and then slide it over, put my bolt in, so on and so forth. But obviously I'm not going to do that because I'm going to tell you in a minute, I'm going to be having to pull this bed off. There's the factory cab mount. And then let's see, our brake cable rubbing. Right there, you can see it's starting to rub it pretty good already in less than 1,000 miles. So I got to resolve that. Probably have to cut this hole bigger and maybe put some rubber, you know, something in there to insulate that cable. Maybe rubber hose around the hole, grommet, something, right? So I got to do something there for sure. And then there's the new fabricated front bed mounts that he fabricated off the frame. And I'll show the frame extension here in a minute. So now here is the part that pisses me off the most, because this guy, this is how he stretched it, and right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm going to call it wrong. So here is my front most rear leaf spring eyelet. Notice how that hole on the left side there is like not exactly I would say just centered, for lack of a better word. So what he did here is he put a nice thick piece of plate, shifted basically pulled the whole axle forward about 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and then just drilled a new hole and said, there's the factory hole, right? So drilled a new hole in this thing, all kind of cattywampus. And I mean, I think it's strong. I'm not really worried about the strength aspect, but obviously we're shifting the axle forwards. You know, so that is a little bit less than ideal. And so basically, here you go. There's your, oops, so just get the light in there. So there's our factory focus. There you go. So there's our factory hole, and then the new hole he engineered, let's call it. I hate it. So once again, I just don't feel very comfortable with this bushing holding up properly. And I don't like the rub on that rear pad, and the alignment on the front pad's weird. And with this thing shifting forward a little bit, you know, he wasn't thinking it would screw up with the geometry of the drive shaft, but I don't know. I was talking with a couple other people who are definitely somebody I would even trust more from a, let's just say, that standpoint. And they seem to think it would. So I'm kind of their opinion, and looking at that, measuring it, it does look off from factory. I did take a measurement, so it's off by like 4 or 5 degrees, but I wouldn't think that'd be enough, but maybe that's my drive shaft issue. So then we've got some, I mean, really nothing a ton new under here. We just got the factory tank. Everything else is extended. All the emissions garbage is still here. Unfortunately, probably will be forever. Yeah, there's the new fabricated bed mount. Nice, fairly nice piece, right? Or not, shouldn't say fairly, it is. I mean, the welds on it, I mean, overall are pretty clean. They got what he did. I mean, his welds, I got nothing to really say bad about that. But then, like I say, here's our shifted forward axle that's rubbing weird on my pads. So unless I want to put airbags in this thing or somehow get longer overloads and put them in the pack, it's like, okay, do I shift the axle back into factory location? And that's kind of the direction I'm leaning. Then here's the fabricated, let me back up, fabricated new cab mounts. Honestly, very nice piece on how he did that, in my opinion. He had to make a new cross member right here. Try and get better light and angle on that for here. I'll come under here. So basically, it's your cross member for the exhaust bracket right there. So that's very very nice, in my opinion. And then here is our stretched section right here. So there. So starting, yep, there we go. Right where that pin is, basically to the left of the pin. This is the extended piece of the frame. Boxed in, radius. I mean, it's nice how he did this. I am happy with that overall. I would have preferred some more corrosion protection, so I do have some cavity wax I'm going to get up in here with and fill this thing to make sure it drains, because I think, yeah, so do that, get in the frame really well, do all that. There's another good shot. Let me get over here. Sorry for all the lighting and moving, folks, but it's kind of hard to do. So there is all of our extended lines. You can see it's channeled, how he stretched it. I mean, honestly, so let's just call it 20 inches worth of stretched material is pretty nicely done. I had a couple people I know, one guy who owns a body shop, take a peek at this, who's done some custom stretched excursion type stuff, and I mean, he thought it looked really, really good too. And so I'm confident in that. So from what he did here, I'm happy with. Now, like I said, there's a lot to still be desired upon. So I guess with that said, the guy who did it, I'll just go ahead and call it out. I mean, you know, if you were really on the guy and you told him you didn't want your leaf springs done and your axle shifted like this, I'm sure he wouldn't do it. And if I would have known that's how he was doing it, I wouldn't have done it. There's another hole on my cable that's just rubbing. But so if you told this guy basically a solution, right, is to instead of stretching all of your frame here, right, you're going to basically stretch a little bit less here in this section, 2 inches, and then you're going to actually have to add on to the rear end because the bed basically, the center position on the long bed dually, or the long bed, let's just say, to the short bed is different. So you need to basically extend the back of the frame out another couple inches for it to work. And so since he didn't do that, he elected just to shift the axle back forward with a longer stretch in the middle. So I don't know. Like I say, without a doubt, I'm going to be pulling the bed off. I'm going to be taking this tank out and trying to put the other bigger fuel tank in. And yeah, so So once again, the guy who did this, he's out in Idaho, kind of Coeur d'Alene area. I think Athol or something like that. But his business goes by like Trex Fabrication. And like I say, super nice guy, but just some of the issues here are super frustrating. And if you told him not to do that and you asked him to, stretch it shorter in the middle, extend the back of the frame, don't drill your bed bolts like a retard for your gooseneck hitch, and you'd probably be all right, honestly. So with that said, I'm gonna, I guess, end the video here. And if anybody has any more comments or wants me to do a follow-up video, something shorter, sorry this got 21 minutes or so, but I'll do that. And in the coming weeks, I'm gonna be doing probably some more on this thing, from getting rid of all the chrome and all that good, some chrome, fuel tank, fleece, power flow pump. So anyways, let's see. Yeah, talk to you later. Have a good night.